to new friends.
I don't find them that pleasant to be around.
This Friday,
I guarantee you won't want to leave.
Speak No Evil is filled with teeth-clenching, seat-clawing suspense.
Something's not right with him.
I've always wanted a family like yours.
James McAvoy will scare you speechless.
You're gonna kill us.
We're just sad to see you go.
Speak No Evil. Rated R. Under 17. Not admitted without parent. Only in theaters Friday.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Do you have a point of sale system you can trust, or is it a real POS? You need Shopify for retail. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify POS has everything you need to sell in person. Go to shopify.com/system, all lowercase, to take your retail business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/system.
Does the former First Lady have more skeletons in her closet than she wants us to know about? Follow me down the rabbit hole about Michelle Obama. Hello, friends, and welcome back to The Rabbit Hole. I'm your host, Danny, and today we are talking about Michelle Obama. We will not be covering the conspiracies behind Barack today. I know there are a lot of them, and I know you want them, but he will get his own episode. We do mention him a couple times in today's episode just because, you can't really talk about one without the other. They're married. Their lives are pretty intertwined, but he's going to have his own episode. Thank you, Katrina, Hope, and Ed, for requesting this. Several of you also, the three of you, requested Barack, so I'll be thanking those same three probably in that episode. Some people also specifically just requested Barack, so we'll get there, I promise. If you are new here, welcome to The Rabbit Hole. I lay out my podcast. I try to lay it out the same every time. However, that doesn't always work out for me. I just do my best. I always do the history behind whatever it is first, and then we do the conspiracy at the end. Sometimes the conspiracy isn't very long. Sometimes it is. It just depends. But that's just, it just is how it is. I just believe that you cannot understand the conspiracy if you don't know the history behind it. So that's why I do it the way I do it. Welcome to all my new friends, and welcome to everybody that's been here for a while. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for coming out. Let's get into the official history, because the official history and the conspiratorial history are very different in today's episode. Michelle Robinson was born in DeYoung, Illinois on January 17, 1964. Her parents were Fraser Robinson III and Marion Shields. Fraser worked at the city water plant as a pump operator, and Marion was a homemaker until the kids went to high school, and then she went to a department store. She worked there as a secretary. Michelle grew up in Chicago's South Side, in the South Shore neighborhood. I don't know much about Chicago, but I have heard through TV shows and things that the South Side is just not very good. So it doesn't sound like a good part of town. But she made the best of it, honestly. She went to public schools, but she was so smart, and she used her smarts. She wasn't just smart and threw them away. So she was in the gifted and talented classes. She graduated from Whitney Young High School in 1981 as class salutatorian. If you don't know, the salutatorian is the second highest academically ranked in the class. And after that, she chose to follow in her brother's footsteps and go to Princeton University. So, her brother was obviously very intelligent as well. She majored in sociology and minored in African American studies. She graduated from Princeton in 1985 cum laude with a Bachelor's of Arts after completing a 99-page thesis titled Princeton Educated Blacks and the Black Community. Cum laude is a phrase, because I didn't know this, I had to look it up. It's a phrase that means with praise or with honors. So typically you have to have like a 3.8 or a 3.9 depending on the school. Like I think it varies from school to school. So like you have to be almost perfect in all of your classes to graduate with honors. And those people get to wear like, you know, like the ribbons or the braided stuff around their neck when they graduate. I didn't go to college, so I was like, I don't know what these words mean. I went to college. That's not true. I went to college for like a day and a half and then I stopped going. After Princeton, she went on to Harvard because you can only go up from there. She graduated with her Juris Doctor, which is a JD degree from Harvard Law School in 1988. While she was at Harvard, she participated in demonstrations advocating the hiring of professors who were members of minority groups. She also worked for Harvard Legal Aid Bureau, assisting low-income tenants with housing cases. So she was very involved in like minority groups, African-American groups. I mean, obviously, her being an African-American woman, she wanted to participate in groups of her similar demographics. And you can only imagine like how hard it was for an African-American woman to be going through Princeton and Harvard and like growing up on Chicago's South Side during all of during the 80s. This is not an easy task for an African-American woman. An African-American or woman, and then put those two things together, that's tough. And she's just like doing the thing, man. Good for her. She went back to Chicago after she graduated from Harvard and got hired by corporate law firm Sidley & Austin. There, she specialized in entertainment law, although depending on the source, that might not be what she specialized in. Who knows? She was definitely a lawyer, 100%. Anyway, while there, she met Barack Obama. He was he was a summer associate at the law firm, and she was assigned to advise him. In none of the sources does it directly say this, but it kind of like skirts around it, so I'm just going to say what they didn't. But I'm assuming that they assigned Michelle to Barack because they were both black, and there were no other black people in the office. Michelle does say somewhere that they were the only black people in the office. In other sources, she is corrected and says that there was one other black person at the company, but they were just like in a different department. But you can imagine like this complete white company in the 80s, right? So you have to keep in mind that this is still the 80s. So two black people, they're like, well, they probably understand each other better. Because people just still didn't understand, like, there's nothing different between, like, the black person and the white person, except their skin color is a little bit different. Like, nothing is different. But they didn't fully grasp that because it's the 80s, so they're like, just put the black people together and they'll figure it out. So I think that's what happened here. And honestly, worked out for them because they did figure it out. They figured it out all the way to the Oval Office. So good for them. But they hit it off right away, although they were like complete opposites. All the while, Michelle's father had multiple sclerosis. So MS is a disease in which the immune system attacks the protective sheath that covers nerve fibers and causes communication problems between your brain and the rest of the body. So this can cause permanent damage or deterioration of the nerve fibers. In Fraser's case, he used 2 canes to get to his job, and in 1991, he had succumbed to his illness and died. Barack and Michelle got married on October 3rd, 1992, so unfortunately, Michelle's father was not there to walk her down the aisle. In the following year, Michelle left Sidley in Austin to work for the city of Chicago's Department of Planning. There, she was the assistant commissioner. So it's not exactly sure, like I looked in my sources, a couple different sources. They didn't have like exact dates for when she was at these different companies or at these different jobs. It's all whatever. She just had different jobs, right? She later became the founding executive director of the Chicago chapter of Public Allies, an AmeriCorps program that prepares young people for public service. In 1996, she joined the University of Chicago as Associate Dean of Student Services. While there, she developed the university's first community service program. During this time, Barack was elected to state senate. So 1996 was a big year for the Obamas. So he was elected to state senate, and the Obama family was living on Chicago's south side. I mean, that's where they're from. They're like, yep, let's stay close to family. That's where we're going to be. All the while, Michelle was struggling with infertility. But finally, through in vitro fertilization, Malia was born in 1998, and Sasha was born in 2001. In 2002, she went to work for the University of Chicago Medical Center. First as an executive director of community affairs, and then, she would change jobs eventually. In 2004, Barack was elected to the U.S. Senate, but the Obamas chose to keep their residence in Chicago instead of moving to Washington, D.C. They felt it was better for their family, for their daughters, to stay around family. So Barack would travel back and forth, and Michelle had this big paying job, so they stayed, the Obama family stayed in Chicago. In 2005, she became the president of Community and External Affairs. This was still at the University of Chicago Hospitals. She held her position at the University of Chicago Hospitals during the campaign, the 2008 campaign for presidency, but cut back to part-time. She wanted to spend time with her daughters and be on the campaign trail with her husband when he needed her, because the wife is a very important part of the presidency. People think, it's Barack running for president. It's not. The whole family is running for president, really. During her husband's presidency, she launched multiple initiatives. Let's Move was one that targeted childhood obesity by encouraging kids to participate in physical activity and revamp U.S. school lunches to include more nutritious food options. Michelle and Jill Biden, because remember, Jill was the vice president wife, launched Joining Forces. So this was an initiative allying Americans and their organizations to support U.S. service members and veterans and their families. The Reach Higher initiative encouraged all American students to aspire to education beyond high school, whether this be through training programs, community college, or university. She published a couple books, one while she was in the White House about her Let's Move initiative, and that was American Grown, the story of the White House kitchen garden and gardens across America. That was published in 2012. The other books were published after they were out of the White House. One of them was called Becoming Michelle Obama. That was published in 2018. The other one was The Light We Carry, Overcoming in Uncertain Times, which was published in 2022. In 2017, the Obama family left the White House, and she continued her mission and appeared at the Partnership for a Healthier America conference. In 2018, they started their Higher Ground media company. In May of 2018, they signed a deal with Netflix to produce series and movies. These were to be like scripted and unscripted. Some would be like docu-series. Some would be documentary films. Some would even be like features. Since then, we have seen films and TV shows come from the Obamas have participated, because you can go to highergroundmedia.com to see like what they have participated in, what they have had a hand in. They have them all listed, because on Netflix you might not be able to like decipher. Don't you worry, because they have a whole list. So I'm going to name just a few of them. I did not name all of them. They have more. But American Symphony, Rustin, Working, What We Do All Day, The Light We Carry with Michelle Obama and Oprah Winfrey. Descendant, Our Great National Parks. The G Word with Adam Conover. Worth, which is about 9/11. I haven't watched it yet, but it's on my watch list because I'm very curious. Fatherhood with Adam Hart. And obviously, at the beginning of this year, they came out with Leave the World Behind, and that caused quite the ruckus. And that's just to name a few. But isn't it interesting that, like, they do all these, they do some, like, you know, feel-good movies, whatever, or feel-good TV shows, whatever. But then they do, like, Worth, which is about, like, paying, it's from the trailer. I haven't seen it, like I said. But it's about paying the families of the victims of 9/11. Which, again, I haven't seen it. I'm very, very curious about that, though. And then Leave the World Behind, which we've dived into and we've dissected that. But wow. And they would have some insight into those things, don't you think? They also have podcasts produced by their media company. So, and I named all of their podcasts, or maybe not all of them, I don't remember. But they have several podcasts. So they have Ways to Win, Your Mama's Kitchen, Michelle Obama, The Light Podcast, The Sum of Us, The Big Hit Show, Tell Them I Am, Renegades, Born in the USA, which is Barack and Bruce Springsteen, and the Michelle Obama Podcast. So they have quite a few things going on over at their media company. And they're just like going strong, doing all kinds of things with their media company. In 2021, she and Barack attended the inauguration of Joe Biden, which makes sense. And she was inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame. This year, there was speculation, including by me, that she would be running for president. But it has officially been announced that she is not. However, unlike most presidents, after leaving the White House, the Obamas stayed in Washington, D.C. Most people will leave the White House and, like, go home. So, like, the Obamas would have gone back to Chicago. Most people would, like, go back to wherever they're from. They did not. They're like, we're just going to stay in Washington, D.C. They still play a very active role in politics. Very active. Of course, all this is from behind the scenes because, like, where do you go after you've been the president? Like, do you take a demotion and go back to, like, the Senate? No. You just play the puppet master. I mean, golf. You play golf. Right? Let's get into the conspiracies. We went through all of the history of Michelle Obama. But what if Michelle was never Michelle? What if all along she was actually Michael? There is a theory going on around all around the internet that Michelle Obama or Michelle Robinson is transgender and Michael was Michelle. And there is some evidence to back it up. During a speech for outgoing chairman, U.S. Navy Admiral Mike Mullen, on September 30th of 2011, Obama was addressing the admiral and his family when he said, quote, Michael and I. And he didn't correct himself. He just kept on talking. The whole thing goes like this. Quote, most of all, Admiral Mullen, Deborah, Michael and I want to acknowledge your son Jack, who's deployed today. All of you have performed extraordinary service to our country, end quote. And it's one thing if you're just reading your speech, so like you just maybe don't care. But, and don't you read through your speeches before you give them? You're telling me you didn't prepare yourself at all, you didn't read through the speech at all and like catch that it says Michael and not Michelle? Secondly, like don't get me wrong, I call my husband the wrong name all the time. I call him my son's name. Sometimes I call him the dog's name. I'm just like going through the Rolodex of names in my head sometimes and I'm like trying to figure out which name to call the right person, right? But I quickly fix it. Or if I'm talking to somebody and I call my husband my son's name and then I fix it and I call him the correct name, right? I quickly fix it. That's your spouse. Like, you know that person's name. Like, that's your person. But Obama didn't even try to fix it. He just kept on going. So either he wasn't paying attention, or that's what he is so used to calling him that is natural. Like, Michelle is unnatural. You know what I'm saying? It's weird that you would not try to fix that. Or, now, I don't like to debunk conspiracies. That's not the point of this podcast. But maybe he's talking about somebody completely different and we're reading way too much into this. I don't think that's the case here. I think that he's talking about Michelle and him. But it's very odd that you would say, Michael and I also want to acknowledge your son, Jack. Michael and I. You didn't try to correct it. You're just reading. You didn't. You didn't write the speech. I'm trying to make it make sense. I'm trying to make it make sense. He didn't write the speech. He didn't read the speech prior. Even with those two things, you would still correct your spouse's name. Right? You would still correct your spouse's name. That's your spouse. That's your person.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Do you have a point of sale system you can trust, or is it a real POS? You need Shopify for retail. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify POS has everything you need to sell in person. Go to shopify.com/system, all lowercase, to take your retail business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/system.
Feel your max with Brooks Running and the all-new Ghost Max 2. They're the shoes you deserve, designed to streamline your stride and help protect your body. Treat yourself to feel-good landings on an ultra-high stack of super comfy nitrogen-infused cushion that takes the edge off every step, every day. The Brooks Ghost Max 2. You know, technically, they're a form of self-care. Brooks, let's run there. Head to brooksrunning.com to learn more.
This episode is supported by FX's Grotesquerie, a new series from executive producer Ryan Murphy. Heinous crimes unsettle a small community, and the local detective feels these atrocities are eerily personal, as if someone or something is taunting her. Starring Niecy Nash Betts, Courtney B. Vance, Leslie Manville, and Travis Kelce. FX's Grotesquerie premieres September 25th on FX. Stream on Hulu.
Whatever. And there's a letter from his ex-girlfriend. And this is pretty damning. So this letter from his ex-girlfriend came out now stating that prior to marrying Michelle, Barack used to think about sleeping with men constantly. So having a man or transgender as a spouse makes sense that now that we have this information, because this ex-girlfriend came out and was like, I'm going to share these letters that I have from Barack, but I'm going to leave this part out because it's pretty damning. I'm just going to leave this out. He sent this letter in 1982 when he was only 21. And maybe everyone goes through a gay phase. I'm not saying that everyone that's gay is going through a phase. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that other people, straight people, could go through a gay phase where you're like, maybe I'm gay and I just don't know it. And you go through a phase like that. And maybe that's what was happening here. He did meet Michelle 7 years later. So, I don't know. Maybe he had just settled into this phase and he was like, yep, I'm going to marry a transgender woman. And that's what he did. I mean, that's totally reasonable. I don't know. I'm just speculating here. You know me. I love to speculate. There are also rumors that when Michelle's mom died, she left everything to her son, Michael. Now, again, I don't like to debunk theories. I don't. I'm not trying to. That's not the point of this. But this rumor might just be a rumor because remember that Michelle has a brother, Craig. So wouldn't some of the estate be left to him as well? That's all. And maybe the Craig and the mom, they didn't get along. And obviously, you can see in pictures that Michelle and her mom were very, very, very close. And so it's 100% possible that maybe, if they didn't get along, Michelle's mom leaves everything to her son, Michael, who's actually Michelle Obama. And that's just what it is. They just, Craig and his mom just had a falling out. And now everything goes to Michelle. And with just how many mainstream sources have come out saying it's a crazy rumor, everything's just made up, it's nuts, those crazy conspiracy theorists, that's what leads me to believe that this all may have a little bit of validity, right? I love it when the mainstream media starts to pipe up really, really, really loud, because that tells me that you're on to something. Because if it really was just whatever, they would just let it, it'll blow by. It'll just go away eventually. Everything does, right? Everything eventually goes away if you just let it run its course. That 15 minutes of fame type situation. Well, this will go away if you don't bring any more attention to it. Well, if they're trying that hard to make it go away, that's interesting. There are some rumors, and I could not find where to verify these rumors, so that's why I'm just calling them rumors, that she changed her voter registration form from male to female in 2008. That it used to say male, and now it says female. And that happened in 2008. And what else happened in 2008? Well, Barack Obama became president. Her being transgender could explain why the Obamas would have to use IVF to get pregnant. There are other rumors rumors that the girls aren't even the Obama's kids at all because she is transgender, that they're just they're really good friends, and that they use their surrogate. So their friends were their surrogate for their kids, and they had both the kids for them because being a transgender, especially young in the transgender movement, I would say, young in the transgender technology, let's say that, she wouldn't have, even using IVF, she wouldn't have been able to grow the children. So they would have used a surrogate to grow the children, and then though the surrogate couple is still very close with the Obamas. I don't know. Either way, I think that gives a little more insight into why she had so many issues getting pregnant, conceiving, all those things. I think something that is really interesting is because there's a lot of facial recognition and AI and all this stuff is coming out right now. And it's not perfect. None of it is perfect. But with all of this coming out and it not being perfect, sometimes the studies get it wrong. But over and over and over, almost every single time, the studies have concluded when they put a bunch of pictures through these systems just to see and to try to train it to say this one's male, this one's female, this one's male. It often, I don't know why, this isn't a race thing or whatever, but these systems often get black females wrong. They often will say black females are male. But that's why they keep feeding them information. So as they're getting more advanced, they have started getting black females more correct. They're this is an African American female. More correct. So now we're up to a 95% correction rate, where 95% of the time they're yep, that's a black female, and it actually is a black female. Almost every single time they call Michelle Obama male. Almost every time. These studies will get other people wrong every now and then, but they get her wrong a lot. Most of the time. That doesn't seem like a coincidence to me. That seems like she might actually be a black male. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, like, why would they hide this? Like, we're pretty progressive. We're a pretty progressive bunch these days. Everyone's transgender. Everybody's gay. It's the hip thing to do. Well, not then. Not in 2008. Think about it, right? In 2008, we're about to elect the very first black man to be the president of the United States. The very first black man ever in the history of the United States. Could you imagine the uproar if you're going to elect the very first black gay man? Not only that, but he's black, he's gay, and he's married to a transgender. Wow. There might have been a civil war in this country because some people just could not have handled that. And on top of that, he probably would have lost the election. He probably would not have won. Because they would not have been able, I don't know who they are, but the country as a whole might not have been able to accept that. There are plenty of people that could have. I'm not saying that everyone would have like lost their minds. I'm just saying that there's a lot of people that could not have accepted that. And they are willing to kill for their, like, to keep their secret. To kill. They're gonna pull a Clinton on you. They pulled a page right out of the Clinton book. On June 30th, 2014, a reporter asked Joan Rivers if the world would see its first gay president. She replied saying, "We already have it with Obama, so let's just calm down," adding, Michelle is a tranny. The reporter was taken aback, like, what? Like, literally needed her to repeat herself, was so taken aback. And she clarifies, a transgender, we all know it. Now, if you don't know who Joan Rivers is, she is like a comedian. She is she's gotten so much plastic surgery. In fact, one time she said that she has so much plastic surgery done that instead of when she dies, instead of donating her body to science, she should donate her body to Tupperware. And so she's been on talk shows. She's done all kinds of things. So anyway, she's kind of controversial though. Like, she's known for kind of speaking her mind because that's what she does. So Joan Rivers says all this on June 30th of 2014. Just a few months later, she dies on September 4th of 2014. Basically, she was suffering from a sore throat, a hoarse voice, and she uses her voice because she's a talk show host, because she's a comedian, because she's been on plays, she's done all kinds of things. She's won awards for these things, guys. Like, she is very well known in this space. So she needs her voice. And she had strained vocal cords, so they sent her in for an endoscopy. An endoscopy is when they use a scope to take pictures of whatever organ needs checking. So they put you under, and then they put like this little, a thing to hold your mouth open, so they can put this scope in your mouth to go down your throat to just check out what's going on in there. So in this case, they were probably like looking at her vocal cords, looking at her throat just to see like what's going on. But they don't put you under for long. It doesn't take that long. Typically, like, I had one done, but you can have them done like in conjunction with a colonoscopy. But like, all of this happens at the same time, and it takes less than an hour. Like, it's so fast. Not a very risky procedure typically. So she goes in to get this endoscopy done. When she went in for the endoscopy on August 28th, there were a lot of complications that day, and apparently they pulled her out. So apparently they found a polyp in her throat. Her doctor was there, but did not have privileges at the hospital. But because she's like this VIP and she shows up in her limousine and she is so important that her doctor stepped in and was like, I'm going to take a biopsy of that polyp right now because it could be cancerous. Which is true. She could have throat cancer, but that doctor had no rights there. They probably shouldn't have done that way, but also that's what you would do. And the other doctor probably would have done that, but they let the doctor with no rights at that hospital step in and do it because that's Joan's doctor. Whatever. That would have been done. Tomato, tomato. They take the polyp. They take the biopsy right then and there. Some complications happen. Again, she doesn't die right away. They take her by ambulance to an actual hospital because I think that she was at a doctor's office and not an actual hospital. So they take her somewhere else by an ambulance. A couple days later, she dies of cardiac arrest. It's weird. Yes, it's totally possible. 100% possible. It's not normal, I would say. It's not something like a normal complication, especially for somebody that goes under the needle often. Like she's often getting work done, so she knows how she reacts when she gets work done. That she would, but she's older now. Maybe her heart just can't handle all the anesthesia. That's possible too. But it's also interesting that she had complications on August 28th when she went in for the endoscopy, but the cardiac arrest didn't actually happen, didn't actually cause the death for several days. And aren't there drugs that can be given to induce cardiac arrest? Aren't there things that people can do? Like, aren't there people going in and out of hospital rooms that can administer medication? I'm not saying that she was murdered. I'm saying that there were complications and that led to cardiac arrest. And yeah, she just happened to say that Michelle Obama was a transgender and we already have a gay president. Yeah, she just happened to say that a couple months. And they waited a couple months because, like, if you do it right away, that's pretty obvious. You don't want to send somebody in to shoot her in the head because, like, you want to make sure that they die under totally normal circumstances. Like when Jeffrey Epstein hung himself. He did that. He totally committed suicide. There are no suspicious circumstances about his death. Similarly, John McAfee also committed suicide. He totally killed himself. There's nothing suspicious about that. Similarly, I know we've talked about this in some episode, and I for the life of me cannot think of it. But at some point, pretty recently, the Obama's chef went on a paddleboarding, adventure and happened to drown with his wallet and his phone and everything that he would have in his pockets. He just went paddleboarding with all of that stuff in his pockets and he drowned. Isn't that interesting? I went ahead and pulled up the article because I wanted to make sure I got the right information. So this happened on July 4th of 2023. The Obama's personal chef went paddleboarding from their house in Martha's Vineyard. The Obamas were not home. It's very important, very clear in this article that we all know that the Obamas were not home when their personal chef went paddleboarding, and it has been ruled an accident. And Michelle even came out and said that he was a beloved part of their family. A fellow paddleboarder reported that Campbell had struggled to the surface, went under, and didn't resurface. As if somebody was pulling him under. No, that's not what was happening. He happened to drown. It was a horrific accident. He was not wearing a life jacket. Maybe he didn't know how to swim. Unfortunately, he did have a wife and twin boys. So that's unfortunate for his family that he had a terrible accident. But they literally had to use sonar to locate Campbell's body. First of all, like I didn't this was a quick Google search for this episode really fast, but like, was he a paddleboarder? Like, did he do this as a thing? And I will get more into this in the Barack episode, but like, does he paddleboard, right? Secondly, his body was about 100 feet from shore, which, okay, fine, you could paddleboard that far, whatever, not a big deal. But also, they found his body 8 feet down. Don't bodies typically float? Typically, they float. After you drown, the body just like raises to the top of the water. And then usually they start to go with the current, and the current will bring a body in. That doesn't, whatever. Nope. It was a tragic accident. A tragic accident. Anyway, Michelle Obama, everyone. Oh my gosh. I can't wait to do a Barack because like there's so much more. And I know that you guys are going to be like, well, what about this? What about that? I'm going to cover so much more about Barack because even on Wikipedia, it was sharing like in 2006 that she made like $250,000. These are rough numbers, please. This is not, I don't have notes in front of me for this. And he made like $150,000. And then she sits on a board. So she made like $50,000 from sitting on this board. And that year they filed their taxes for almost $1 million. And I was like, those numbers aren't adding up. And he was in the Senate that year. So I was like, somebody's paying them off. And Wikipedia is literally posting it. I'm like, well, first of all, they would have scrubbed it from Wikipedia. So, like, why do they want everybody to know? Secondly, like, I have so many more questions. The Barack episode is going to be really fun. This is fun. I love this. I'm having fun with the Baracks, with the Obamas, because this is silly. Something I forgot to mention. The bulges in her pants. There are several times, and you can look up videos, there are several times where she is like dancing or she's moving or she's doing whatever she's doing, and you can see a bulge in her pants as if she has a penis. I mean, I don't know for sure. It could just be the lighting. It could be the way her pants move. She does wear a lot of pantsuits. So, like, maybe it's pantsuits. I don't wear pantsuits that frequently. So it could just be that. But it is very interesting that she always is having the lighting off. Very interesting. And one other thing we didn't hit on that I wanted to hit on before I say goodbye is her book from 2018, Becoming Michelle Obama. What does that mean, Becoming Michelle Obama? Why did you write a book about that? I know that she's trying to encourage like young women to be who they want to be and do what you want to do. And I get that. I do. I understand that like you have this platform as the first lady or former first lady. And like you were the first African-American woman to hold this position. That's amazing. That is fantastic. So now what? Right? And you have to encourage women. You have to encourage young girls that they can aspire to be something big. But what are you talking about when you say becoming Michelle Obama? Because you have all this other stuff. And it would be one thing if there was no other evidence suggesting that you might not be who you say you are. But then you're going to put it in our faces like that. You're going to throw it in our faces like, haha, I'm not actually who I say I am. Look, I wrote a whole book about it. I haven't read the book, just the title. And they do say don't judge a book by its cover. And I am 100% judging a book by its cover. But if you've read the book, let me know. You guys can message me on Instagram. I always reply to your messages. You can message me on TikTok. I'm not as good at replying on TikTok just because I'm new to TikTok and I'm trying to figure it out. So if you guys have any pointers, let me know. I would really appreciate that. And until next week, my friends, stay skeptical and I will see you all then. Hey friends, The Rabbit Hole is an independent podcast with everything you hear done by me, Danny Mercy. I appreciate all of your support. Please rate and review wherever you're listening. If you want to follow us on Instagram, it's at rabbit.holepodcast. And thank you, Zakar Balaha, for our awesome intro.